The U.S. Navy amphibious assault ship USS Wasp was recently seen sailing in the South China Sea on its way to the Philippines with an unusually heavy configuration of F-35s. The Wasp was carrying at least 10 F-35B Lightning II stealth fighters, more than the usual load of 6 of these hard-hitting fifth-generation jet fighters, the National Interest first reported, adding that the warship may be testing the light carrier warfighting concept known as the Lightning Carrier. The amphibious assault ship is participating in the Balakatan exercises, during which U.S. and Philippine forces will conduct amphibious operations, live fire training, urban operations, aviation operations, and counter-terrorism response, the U.S. Navy announced in a statement yesterday. The annual exercises prepare troops for crises in the Indo-Pacific region. 2019's exercises are focused on maritime security, a growing concern as China strives to achieve dominance over strategic waterways. It's the first time the Wasp and its Marine Corps F-35B fighters have participated in the Balakatan exercises. The ship and its fighters represent an increase in military capability committed to a free and open Indo-Pacific region, the Navy said, using rhetoric consistent with U.S. military freedom of navigation operations and bomber flights in the South China Sea, intended to check China. The F-35B is the Marine Corps variant of the Joint Strike Fighter. The Air Force and Navy are also fielding versions of the fighter, the F-35A and the F-35C, the latter of which is designed to operate on full-size carriers. The F-35B, which was declared combat-ready in 2015, can perform short takeoffs and vertical landings and is suited for operating on amphibious assault ships. In addition to at least 10 F-35s, the configuration on the Wasp reportedly included 4 MV-22 Osprey tilt-rotor aircraft and 2 MH-60S Seahawk helicopters. Typically, there would be fewer fighters and more rotor aircraft, the War Zone reported. Deploying with more F-35s than usual could be a first step toward fielding of light carriers, an approach that could theoretically boost not only the size of the carrier force but its firepower. The concept is not without precedent. During the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq in 2003, amphibious assault ships sailed with up to 20 AV-8B Harriers, becoming Harrier carriers. The concept has been rebranded as the Lightning Carrier, a reference to the fifth-generation fighters the warships would carry into battle. The War Zone said an America-class amphibious assault ship, successors to the Wasp class, could carry 16 to 20 F-35s in a light carrier configuration. Fall 2018, a U.S. F-35B launched from the Wasp-class amphibious assault ship USS Essex and conducted the fifth-generation platform's first combat mission, striking militant targets in the Middle East. In February 2019, the F-35B achieved another first as it carried out strikes in beast mode, meaning an external ordnance loadout, in the Pacific. The light carrier concept could see more F-35s doing maritime operations, delivering a massive increase in firepower. This could prove beneficial if the Navy goes ahead with plans to scrap a Nimitz-class carrier as it bets big on the troubled Ford-class carriers and other future combat platforms. The U.S. has deployed Marines in the South China Sea as tensions between Washington and Beijing continue to be on a knife edge. Revisiting a strategy used in World War II, the U.S. Marines have been deployed in order to practice their tactic of taking small islands in the region. Deployed on the Japanese island of Ejima, the Marines captured an airfield as they practiced their tactic of securing advanced footholds. Although the exercise was not an outward show of aggression towards Beijing, U.S. Marine Corps General Joseph Dunford admitted that it was essential that the U.S. shows its dominance against Asian power. General Dunford said, "It is critical for us to be able to project power in the context of China. If you look at the island chains and so forth in the Pacific as platforms from which we can project power, that would be a historical mission for the Marine Corps and one that is very relevant in a China scenario." China has tried to increase its dominance in the region by claiming multiple islands within the country's nine-dotted line strategy. Due to that strategy, China has claimed multiple islands which have led to disputes with neighboring countries. Most notably, Beijing fell into disputes with the Philippines and Vietnam over its respective claims to the Spratly and Parcel Islands. Last year, Marine Lieutenant General Kenneth Mackenzie issued a veiled warning to Beijing as he confirmed America's military strength in the region. He said, "I would just say that the United States military's had a lot of experience in the Western Pacific taking down small islands." Recently, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo hit out China's illegal island building in international waterways following the development at WW3 and Drummond Islands. Jeffrey Engstrom, a senior policy analyst, told Newsweek, "If built, additional basing infrastructure and logistics nodes allow China's People's Liberation Army (PLA), Navy, Coast Guard and the Maritime Militia to further expand presence and operational tempo in the South China Sea, SCS. This has the ability to raise tensions by placing even more pressure than we have witnessed so far on the other South China Sea claimants and routine U.S. military activity in the region." Both Chinese and U.S. ships have strayed into disputed territorial zones. The two powers tussle for dominance. Moreover, last November, Vice President Mike Pence said, "The South China Sea doesn't belong to any one nation." The U.S. appears to have sailed a warship armed with stealth fighters near a disputed reef in the South China Sea. Filipino fishermen spotted an aircraft carrier launching stealth fighters near the contested Scarborough Shoal, a tiny speck of land in the South China Sea, the local media outlet ABS-CBN reported yesterday. The video report shows what looks like a U.S. amphibious assault ship, most likely the USS Wasp. The Wasp has been training with Philippine Navy ships in Subic Bay and in international waters of the South China Sea for several days, a U.S. military spokeswoman told the Japan Times, refusing to confirm the Wasp's presence near Scarborough Shoal for force protection and security reasons. The Marine Corps told Business Insider that they were aware of the video but were unable to confirm when and where it was taken. It is also unclear how close the vessel in the video was to the shoal. The ship has been conducting flight operations in the area as part of ongoing Balikatan exercises with the armed forces of the Philippines, according to U.S. Pacific Fleet. The U.S. Navy warship ship sailed into Subic Bay last week with a heavy configuration of 10 F-35B Lightning II Joint Strike Fighters, significantly more than it normally carries. "We have a lot of capability on this ship," Captain Jim McGovern, Commodore of Amphibious Squadron 11, said of the WASP, Stars and Stripes reported. The F-35B is a jump jet that has directional engines that allow it takeoff from and land on short runways. A U.S. Marine Corps spokesperson told Business Insider that the WASP has been operating in international waters and Philippine territory during the joint exercises. Philippine territory means different things to different countries in the region. China seized Scarborough Shoal, a potential powder keg in the South China Sea, from the Philippines after a tense standoff in 2012. The Philippines took the dispute before an international arbitration tribunal in 2016 and won. Beijing, however, rejected the ruling, as well as the tribunal's authority. China has not militarized the shoal as it has the Paracels and Spratleys, the other two corners of what is commonly referred to as the Strategic Triangle. The U.S. routinely conducts freedom of navigation operations, as well as bomber overflights, in the South China Sea as a challenge to Beijing's sovereignty claims. These operations usually take place in the Paracels and Spratleys. The last freedom of navigation operation near the Scarborough Shoal took place in January 2018, when the U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyer USS Hopper sailed within 12 nautical miles of the shoal. China accused the U.S. of violating its sovereignty and security interests.